Hi, everybody. Welcome to What Women Want Show with Judy Goss and Kristen West. Hi, Kristen.
Hey, Judy. How are you today?
I'm fantastic. It is so great to see your face after so many years of not seeing your face on What Women Want Talk Radio. I hear your giggles. And, you know, it's just so fantastic because you and I have wanted to interact with our audience so badly and get them involved in our conversation. And it's just so wonderful that we finally get a chance to do this.
It is. It definitely is. I mean, I think it's important that women talk to each other. It's important that women share their stories, share what information, because that's ultimately how we empower each other. And I'm really glad that we're doing this.
That's right. And I want you to open up Facebook if you can right now so we can see people commenting and liking and sharing and interacting with us because we really want to hear what you have to say and also what topics you want to hear. And we are going to be on Facebook on What Women Want Show page every Wednesday at 8 p.m. for 30 minutes. And we're going to have the most amazing guests like tonight. We're talking about a very important topic. It's sex trafficking in the U.S. Now, from what I hear, Atlanta, where the Super Bowl is being held in 11 days from now, is on the FBI's top 10 list for human trafficking and has been for the past 15 years. Now, our guest, Mary Frances Bowley, is training over 10,000 volunteers to go into the Super Bowl and identify sex traffickers and try to thwart what they are doing. So it's going to horrify you, the statistics, but it's going to give you hope what Mary Frances Bowley has to say to us tonight on how she is making this world better, especially with the women. Now, we're going to have Mary Frances on in just a minute, but first we want to thank you, our listeners, for being so loyal and sticking with us throughout the years. We have over 1.5 million downloads on our show since we first started, and we are on iHeart now, we're happy to say. iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, and really all over the place. I know, right? So you can find us everywhere. So listen to those replays and like and share. And now you can see our faces finally, and because we're not on the radio, and it's just so exciting. A lot of you know that when I started way back when, I was a high fashion model for Ford New York. And now I've moved on to TV hosting. Besides What Women Want Show, I just finished my second season of Behind the Gates. It's a luxury real estate show on AWE channel. And I'm also a regular contributor on NBC and Fox. And I'm an author for St. Martin's Press, and I founded the company What Women Want Networking and the What Women Want Conference about 8 years ago. And I'm also a mom of teenage twin girls. So I'd like to talk a little bit about you, Kristen. I'm sitting here babbling on and on about myself. I'd love you to tell them about what you're doing, who you are, and Kristen, what is behind the story of Kristen West?
Oh my gosh, it depends on the week. Well, this week, so I'm an actor, I'm a producer, I'm a screenwriter. And what I'm working on this week is TikTok, the streaming app that does short videos. They asked me to find things that were oddly satisfying. So I'm getting to do like weird science stuff, playing with pinwheels and kitchen science and stuff like that. So I'm doing that for TikTok this month, which is really fun. And we're wrapping up our second season of Horror Talk with Kristen West. We have a double episode with renowned film composer Alan Howarth. He is amazing. He actually measured the sound frequencies produced by the Great Pyramid in Egypt. And I got to talk to him.
Wow.
Yeah, the guy's
I'm so jealous. You get to talk, you not only get to talk to fascinating guests on What Women Want, but also Horror Talk with Kristen West. So I'm very jealous. And I want to come out to LA and be on your show, although I'm not in the horror industry, but you know, maybe I could just talk to you for a minute.
We're going to do some co-hosting for sure. When you come out next, we're going to do some big bad co-hosting. But, you know, and then I get to talk to people like Mary Frances Bowley, who really have this amazing mission in life to empower and really save the most vulnerable women and children in the world. And I'm so glad that we're getting about this topic that's really uncomfortable for a lot of people. People don't want to believe that it's happening in the U.S., and it is, like you said.
It is, Kristen, and that's one of the reasons why I chose this topic, is because I really feel like it needs awareness. And I heard that the average age of a girl who is a victim of sex trafficking is 14. And
Wow.
I have twin girls that are 14. So this really hit the depths of my heart when I heard this. And I just had to have Mary Frances on this evening and find out what's going on and what we can do to help her. And I'm going to bring her on the show here. She should appear in just a second. Mary Frances Bowley is the founder and executive director of Wellspring Living. More than 100,000 children are trafficked in the U.S. That's the United States alone. And more than 250,000 are at risk. Wellspring Living is transforming the lives of those who have been or at risk of being victimized by sexual exploitation. Their mission is to help women reintegrate into the community. And the Women's Academy trains survivors on valuable job skills and helps place them in internships with top Atlanta companies. Welcome to the show, Mary Frances.
Thank you for inviting me on.
Oh my gosh,
Well,
we're so happy to have you.
Well, I'm glad
Absolutely.
to. Thank you.
And from a kindergarten teacher in Alabama to a highly respected national leader in the sex trafficking industry, that's a wild ride there. Tell us about how you found your way in helping these women.
I think that, every part of your life is a building block. And I actually became a person that wanted to stand up for people who didn't have anybody that would help them. And my oldest brother had Down syndrome. And so when I was 5 years old, at school, right about first grade, I was on the playground and he was on the playground. And this bully came up and started mocking him and telling me he was dumb. And so I just busted his nose. And he bled all over the place, and he never bothered my brother again. And so you learn to be a defender. And so that kind of started early in my life. I had a lot of opportunities to be nurturing within my family because of that. And then when you think about it, I got my education just like all the other females in our family. And then I was working with kindergartners. And if you really go deep into what are triggers or what are things that would make a child vulnerable, it's sexual abuse. And when that happens, a child's ability to understand who is safe and who isn't safe is harmed, and they emotionally are arrested. And so when we're working with our younger girls, especially, you have to almost think like a kindergarten teacher. And so it's kind of a wild thing. I'm so unqualified. I have all boys. And until 2 years ago, I had all grandsons.
But you are a girl last time I checked.
That's about it. So I learned a whole lot about what these young women and girls needed. And we just really let them lead us and how to develop programming for them.
Well, tell us about Wellspring Living and what exactly that is.
Yeah, we started in 2001, almost 18 years ago, helping young women who were in desperate places. And at the time, not many people were talking about trafficking. And so when this young woman, she was 20 years old, and she told me her story that she ran away from home with her boyfriend when she was 16, and he was 29, and he took her to Kansas City, and all these bad things happened. I was thinking, oh, bad choices, And then she gets on a bus and gets back into Atlanta, and it just was a horrible situation. Started young, but it continued on. And what we watched happen over the course of about 9 months is just her confidence in who she was created to be was reestablished. We did a lot of trauma counseling, and so dealt with the trauma of the complex trauma that happens with trafficking. And that early beginning stage was what really set the foundation for our programming. And then in 2007, Mayor Franklin, who was the mayor of Atlanta at that time, came to me and said, we need help with your girls. And so we talked about it. We talked to our board about it. We did a lot of studying, and we opened a home for girls 12 to 17. So residential services was really all we were doing until about 2014, but realized that you cannot serve the masses And we know the numbers are huge. And so how can we partner with other organizations in our city and help in a community-based program? And so we opened our Women's Academy that you mentioned earlier in 2014. And the whole idea is any young woman over the age of 18 who has had sexual exploitation, and we don't say trafficking because as an adult, it's kind of hard to identify that. But we lead up to it. And while they're with us, they're getting trauma-based counseling, both group and individual. They're getting the opportunity, if they haven't gotten their high school diploma, to get their GED. They're having the opportunity to get professional development, personal development. And once they finish the career track, they get to have a 12-week paid apprenticeship with amazing companies like UPS and Delta and Accenture. And even the city of Atlanta has now signed on to be an apprenticeship partner. So it's remarkable what can happen. And I like to just, for people to understand that what happens to girls and young women is just horrible. It's intolerable. It should never have happened. But if they survived, if they even had the desire to get out of it, I mean, they're smart, they're resilient, and they will blow your mind with what they can accomplish. And our apprenticeship partners are amazed every time a new one walks in the door, because they're like, she's so smart, she can do so much. And it's like, yes, she can. Give her help.
Well, I think there's a lot of stereotypes and a lot of negative perceptions you have to overcome, because I think as women, first of all, and unfortunately, most of the perpetrators of these crimes against women are men. Is that correct, Mary?
It is. It is.
What's the profile of the men that are doing that?
Boy, that is a loaded question, because they're anybody. I think you have to understand that it's a business. So people who are wanting to make money become traffickers. And one of our graduates was trafficked by a former university professor. He said, "You want to make some extra money?" And she, was not completely naive, but kind of naive, but very desperate. And so
I want to know, it's not, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but it's not necessarily people that are kidnapping, and it doesn't come in such a dramatic situation. It can be anyone.
Right. And they lure vulnerable children, vulnerable women into believing that they are wanting to help them. And then believing that I want to be your boyfriend. And then you need to help me pay the rent and all of those kinds of things. It's just a scheme for them to make money. But on the other side of the picture, the traffickers, they come from, all kinds of walks of life. There's no profile. Demand is the same thing.
Really?
You would be shocked that the time that most men are purchasing people is between the hours of 11 and 7.
During work hours.
Right. They get on the computer because it's always underground. It's not seen. Yeah. They can do it and nobody knows. And they sign up during their lunch hour for what they want. And they go into sometimes high-end apartments, hotels, and have their services, as they say, but they don't even think about what they're doing. It's what I have to believe. I remember one of our graduates telling me that most of the men that came in that she was forced to serve were parents, and they are fathers, and they would talk about their family. So it's just bizarre.
And they have daughters.
Yeah.
So it's really they don't see that young girl or woman as a victim. They see them as maybe they're choosing to do it. And that is a big fallacy.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Now recently Backpage and Craigslist have Backpage shut down. Craigslist Personals, I think, is pretty much gone.
Yeah.
How much of an impact does that have on helping women?
Well, I think anytime you can shut down a source, that's a good thing. They were making a ton of money off of people, humans, beings being sold. But I will say that people are desperate and they can be very conniving. And there are other ways that they are getting to their clients, sometimes, or even to the girls. A lot of apps are very they're very used by kids, and so they come in and pretend. One of our young women was looking at Instagram, and she noticed this female that was just posting all these amazing pictures of places she went. She was the same age as her, and she's like, "Oh, what do you do to be able to travel like that?" And so she thought the whole time she was talking to a female, and when she went to meet the girl, Chrissy, it was a guy. And at that point, you know, she had gotten herself kind of stuck, and it went from bad to worse.
Now, there has been Facebook ads where there are class action lawsuits against the hotels.
Right.
How complicit are hotel staff and hotel owners in this problem?
You know, I think that many of our hotels have signed on to ECPAC and the Code of Conduct, and they're trying so hard. We just helped to pass out material at 80 of the hotels in Atlanta, so that when a guest comes in, there's a little card that says, you know, if you participate in this, you will be prosecuted. Part of the way we're trying to keep this from happening is to prevent it from happening. And you were talking about training the volunteers. That actually was not me. It was my very good friend, Deborah Richardson. But she, with the Center for Civil and Human Rights, have put together a training. We help them with that. But normally the volunteers at Superbowl are trained about, here's the bathroom, this is what you do, all that. But we got to talk to them through Deborah and our relationships about, look out for this. And if you see a young girl with an older man, you see some things that you don't think are right, please do something. Call
so what are the things I want to know? That was one of my questions, actually. What are some of the things that we should look for when we're at concerts or sporting events or things like that? What are some of the things that should be a red flag when we see it?
Anytime you see an underage girl with a man, or sometimes madams, but mostly men, and that person seems to have control over them, and they're not really giving them the right eye contact like a father or a brother would, that's something that's suspicious. And the thing I say to people is, if you think something's not right, you need to go with your gut. Report it.
So what do you do? Who do you report it to? Who? To the security at the event, or
security at the event? But also,
and say, I think something's wrong. Something looks off. I feel like something's, not.
Yes, and all of the police departments in Metro Atlanta have been trained on how to respond, and so that's going to be a huge way that we're going to hopefully prevent trafficking from happening. Because if we can see it's happening and get that young girl into safety, that's amazing.
That is amazing. And I just want to give a quote from one of your victims that said, "My trafficker was a state university professor who took his mother to brunch after church on Sunday."
Yeah.
And it's just unbelievable that, most of the men are white business professionals, middle-aged, doctors, lawyers, politicians, and most are married with children.
Those are the ones that are purchasing our young girls and women. The particular professor was actually a trafficker, and traffickers can be all kinds of different people.
Now, a lot of times the way that these traffickers maintain control of these victims is that they say, well, it's not that I'm pimping you. It's that you are actually, if you don't stick with me, if you don't put up and shut up, you're going to go to prison for pandering, for prostitution.
Yeah.
And, that became a big issue with Centoya Brown because she killed the person who was pimping her. And her sentence just got commuted.
You might want to do the same if you experience what they experienced. It's awful.
Now, the issue is, and this affects women whether or not you're a sex worker or not, whether your significant other is purchasing or not. And many women often stigmatize sex workers. Europe tends to have and I'm generalizing Europe, obviously. I didn't quite unpack every country that has this. Some European countries actually have legalized prostitution.
They do.
Would that curb this at all?
Some studies say it's a Scandinavian model. Some studies believe that might be the right way to manage it. I don't know if our country is ready for that. I think that we've done a lot to educate the general public, and but we still need judges and police officers to see that this is not something they choose. And we've come a long way. I think that's part of the problem. I also know that as these young girls and women are tricked, it is mind coercion.
Brainwashed, tricked.
Brainwashed, yes. Tattooed. I didn't mention this, but if you see a girl with a tattoo on their neck or on their forearm or on their ankle with a man's name, that's what they do to make the girl remember that she belongs to him. And so that's another sign. If you see those kinds of tattoos, whether you're at the Super Bowl or in your community or at your civic events, that's a serious issue. And it's so important that you say something.
Now, one thing I was reading up on in particular that we don't talk about enough with this situation where you have thousands of women being trafficked. And like I mentioned, they're, in Europe, in the Scandinavian model, like you were saying, thanks for clarifying that, these women are subjected to gynecological exam and STI tests every 2 weeks. This is also a public health concern as well, I would imagine.
Oh, there's so many health issues that are, that's wrap around this issue. Not even just gynecological issues. We're talking about digestive issues. We're talking about heart. There are just so many traumas that
just the stress alone.
Substance abuse.
Yes, substance abuse is huge. In fact, during the Super Bowl, one of our graduates told me that her pimp and his partner would keep them going for 48 hours straight. They would be feeding them the meth. And you don't have a choice. I think that's the other piece. People think, well, you should run away. You should get away. But number one, you think there are no other options because that's what that man has told you or that mom has told you all your time. And you grew up maybe with no real support. And so many of our
you just don't have the self-confidence. That's all it can take. I'm sure.
And if you're hooked on a drug.
Yeah.
So
there's
need a
so
steady
many
supply.
Factors. There's so many factors that keep someone who really wants to get out and unable to do that.
It's horrifying.
Yep, it is. But it's hopeful because there are more and more organizations that are popping up around the United States to serve those survivors of trafficking.
Well, Mary Frances, it's hopeful because you are a leader. In this industry. Absolutely. I've read about everything that you're doing, including lobbying for law changes to, everything that you're doing. It's had a national ripple effect. And, I can't imagine that effect that it's had on the young girls and women of our country. It's just amazing. So thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you. Thank you. It's my joy. And it is so much fun in some ways, because you see someone that doesn't think that they can do anything. And you see them then at graduation talking about how they're going to become a vet. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. They have high aspirations. It's just that they've never had a way to get out and to have access to care. I think the one thing I would pray and hope for the young girl in Tennessee is that she gets she works with her trauma and people help her truly get on her feet so she can have a life, because life beyond this is possible. In fact, I think that the girls that we've seen graduate are young women. They are now leaders. They're going back and finding other girls. They're remembering and talking to the FBI and to all of our law enforcement. It's like, so-and-so is here and this is where you can find. They're part of the prosecution. They're going to be a mighty force to reckon with. I really believe they are.
Absolutely. And you're riding a wave also. Kristen, you and I have talked so much about the Me Too movement and coming out of our shells, and women who are stepping forward and taking a stand. So it all really rolls into that whole wave of, you know what, let's get up and do something about this.
Exactly.
Well, I think the work that Mary Frances is doing is showing, you know, a lot of time women get in defensive postures. Oh, this woman is taking my man, or this woman is distracting my man, or we tend to make an enemy of other women. And I think once we shed some of this, you know, hooker with a heart of gold stereotype, you know, femme fatale stereotype, you know, if we try and, you know, strippers are people too, frankly. You know, if we start to shed that and really get curious about what these women's lives are like, why
and what they're feeling, right?
And what they're feeling,
Humanizing
exactly. It's important. It's important. It's necessary. It's valuable.
It is.
Because, you know, because we're only as strong as the weakest one of us is, in all honesty.
Right.
You know, and so many women, you know, because of like Mary Frances said, sexual abuse or financial disempowerment fall through these cracks very easily and too easily, frankly.
You're right. And I think that's the big barrier. When we first got started, we did not have a way for our young women to be able to support themselves. We would find an employer here and an employer there, and they would almost give them a job out of sympathy. These girls are smart. They can earn it. They can earn it. And so now having to get into these corporations and help them to believe, I think that's part of our job too, is helping the general public believe in the possibility that this young woman could be amazing. And I was just at a big corporation on Tuesday, and one of my graduates was with me and telling her story. Like, she is working alongside Georgia Tech master graduate level people and keeping up with them. I mean, doing
my gosh,
everything that they can do, she can do, because she is smart and she just needs the opportunity to prove herself. And it's really cool to watch how you talk to a corporation, you do some training, and then they meet the girl and they think they're stepping out over a cliff, and then they realize she's going to be one of our best employees.
Wow. That is so fantastic. You are changing the lives of women all around the world, honestly, with this. And it starts with you, because you're the ones that take them through and show them the confidence that they need and really walk them through the steps that they need to go to better themselves and to get back on track. So it's absolutely fantastic.
How do we be of help and be of service to you, Mary Frances, and what you're doing? How do we help you do what you do?
Yeah, what you're doing now is huge, because I think as you are speaking to people all across the country, you're dispelling some myths. One myth is that all the people that are being trafficked in America are coming from another country, and that's not true.
That's not true.
Most of them are domestic. Our minors, especially, are all little girls that look like us, our children, or our grandchildren, or our neighbors' children and grandchildren. So I think dispelling myths. Also, hopefully, I believe what you guys do every week is inspire women that they can make a difference. And as they listen to this, we also provide training. So if you feel like, I want to do something in my community, we'll help you open a facility. That's part of what we feel like is our way to pay it forward, because one place doing great work is great, but having this model that has been proven to be successful spread all over the United States and the world, that's better. So you bringing awareness is huge.
Now I have
thank you so much. Go ahead. And after this, I want to get to the people on Facebook that are commenting too.
Now, Mary Frances, we talked about sporting arenas. We talked about hotels. We talked about the public health aspect of it. Where else is this crime transpiring that we may not think of, that might be surprising?
Yeah, in neighborhoods. So 2 years ago, there was a man in Dunwoody, a very wealthy part of our community. And
in Atlanta, that's in Atlanta.
In Atlanta, you're right. And the renter paid the owner 1 year's rent up front in cash.
Yikes.
And he was running a trafficking ring. So like, yeah, so it's in your backyards. It's not downtown in the dark crevices. It's not just in hotels. It's everywhere. And so that's why we want people to be aware. If you see something going on in your neighborhood that doesn't seem right, please let the police know. It's their job to figure it out, not us. We're not detectives, but they are being trained very well on what to do, and we need to speak up.
Scary. Very scary.
Really. So, Kristen, are you on the Facebook page? Because I know some people were commenting and maybe had questions.
Yes, let me take
Ann Ciccone.
Yeah, I see Ann.
Thank you for watching.
Of course, we love Lucy. We see Lucy and Charlene, and we talked about sort of some of the signs there. What about, now we've been talking about adult women and teen women. Obviously, pedophilia also applies here, especially younger boys, young male children too. What should we be looking at to protect our sons, protect our little brothers and little brothers?
I think, one of the things we have seen is that where this is happening is in communities that are impoverished. And we're actually working in an alternative school this year for the first time. And we thought we were going to go in as the Girls Academy, that not only work with girls. And the first person that walked in our therapist office was a boy. And so now we're the Youth Academy. So what you also need to know is that the recruiting for traffickers many times is happening in our schools. And so what you want to do is to know who your children are hanging out with. And if there's something unusual happening, your children need to kind of know this isn't good, and maybe they can report it. But most importantly, you need to really know who your kids are hanging out with. And we also know that traffickers will hang outside of these types of schools and just wait for girls or guys to walk out in order to try to lure them into becoming trafficked.
So we're talking about schools that are alternative schools. We're talking about schools that might be, to use the more older term, reform schools.
Or at risk.
At-risk schools where children are already displaying some kind of behavioral distress.
Yeah. So most of them have our own free lunch. They probably have some dysfunction in their family and probably suffered childhood sexual abuse. And so that's a mecca for a trafficker. And so there's actually one school that the Atlanta City schools told us that they realized after they had been trained that, oh my goodness, they're on the corner here and on the corner there. And when they walk down to where they would catch the bus, they're going to be after them. So 90% of the children who are being trafficked are enrolled in school. So we need to be in schools to help make teachers aware, help teach our children. And I would say that we don't think it's happening in other schools other than alternative or at-risk schools, but anytime that a trafficker can get someone into a school to kind of talk to a kid that is feeling, not seen.
Right. That's rebellious and unheard. What about the foster care system? I know there are many thousands of loving foster parents that are doing everything they can to love and care for children. But how many of these kids are getting exploited via the foster care system?
Well, with foster care, that a child comes in and there's been some problem in his family life. And because of that, that's a vulnerability. And so they're put maybe in a great foster home or they're put in a group home, but they tend to run away. And I know that we have like over 80% of the girls that we've served are in the foster care system in one way. So that's a very big percentage.
That's wow.
Yeah. All of these percentages and statistics and facts that you've given us tonight are shocking at best. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And I'm so happy that you were able to come on the show and let us know honestly and candidly about it and what we can do, first and foremost, if we're at a large event, what to see, how to, who to tell and where to go. So it's just fantastic. I admire all the work you're doing with this. We could keep you on here for a couple of hours talking. Yeah, absolutely. Talking about, all of this and really trying to figure it out. And I'm sure that through the 18 years you've been doing this, it's probably still just horrifying and shocking to you as well. And there are many other questions too you could ask. So I appreciate you coming on the show and trying to kind of pack it in all into 25 minutes and let us know what's going on and spreading the awareness.
I appreciate the opportunity. And again, just you telling this story may save a life. You never can tell. So thank you for doing that.
Oh my gosh, she's so sweet. Thank you so much, Mary Frances.
Frances.
Thank you.
Kristen, wow. It's crazy what I feel like we're a part of every single day. And as we go through life and we assume so many things and maybe sometimes don't bother to look around. I know when I'm in New York City and I just go through the crowds, I don't think about things like Mary Frances said. So it's really, quite honestly, something that I think it should be on the forefront of our minds a little bit more.
I think we could all afford to be a little bit more aware of our environment, of our schools, the institutions that we rely upon sometimes fail us, frankly. And yeah, it's sobering to listen to something like this, but
it is.
What I said this to someone last week about a totally different topic is when you know better, you do better. And I firmly believe that, especially now that we've, had this really comprehensive conversation with Mary Frances. And I know I'm going to make a conscious effort to do better and be more aware when I go to the game, when I go to a concert, when I'm out and about, and open those eyes and be willing to see what may be uncomfortable and unsettling too. I think that's a big thing too. You have to be willing.
Yeah, totally. And I like that that's part of our show, is bringing out that sometimes about things that people don't really want to talk about or maybe don't want to hear about. I certainly don't want to hear about something like sex trafficking that the average age is a 14-year-old girl. That's not what I want to hear with twin girls that are 14 at this moment. But I, more than ever, when I do hear that, want to spread awareness and spread the word about how we can help curb it and eventually, hopefully, eradicate it. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening to What Women Want Show. And we just, are really grateful that now you're interacting and commenting and, really coming along the journey with us. So keep in touch with us on social and visit our website, whatwomenwantbroadcast.com. Listen to the archive of our shows and have a great week. And we'll see you right here, same time. Shinjini Das is coming on next week. We're so excited. And she's another wealth of information and inspiration, taking a journey from as an immigrant, right, from India, and really just kicking butt and becoming successful in her own right. So I'm excited to have another great show.
Yeah, you won't need that evening coffee after Shinjini's on. You'll be wide awake. She's
That's right. She's amazing. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Good night, Kristen. Good night, everyone.
Good night, Judy. Night, everyone. Have a great night.